This could be the best thing to happen to MCU Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Yo Snackers, what's up? Pretzels here. Doubtless you've heard of the news already. Sony and Disney's contract was for 5 movies. The details were that Sony would finance 100% of the Spider-Man movies and get most of the 95% of the profits of the Spider-Man solo films. That contract has now expired, and so Disney suggested in renegotiating the contract that Marvel finance Spider-Man solo films 50-50, but take more than 5% of the end profits. And Sony said no. That means they're pulling out, which means Kevin Feige won't be an executive producer on the next Spider-Man movie, which Sony still fully intends to produce. Kevin Feige won't be executive producing, overseeing this, but Sony still probably fully intends to continue. I mean, Sony definitely wants to continue making Spider-Man pictures. Sony still has rights to the Spider-Man character and related properties, so we'll still be getting sequels to Into the Spider-Verse, which is going to be dope, along with, Morbius, Venom sequels. Venom. Question is whether they're going to do Homecoming 3. And I hope so. This actually makes me more excited for the franchise. I've been planning on doing this sort of thing for a while. I've been percolating these ideas in my head. Now I actually have an excuse to get them out there. And the ultimate Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man Homeopathic Remedies is going to be an official canonical part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They just won't be able to reference any other part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is fine. Spider-Man being connected to the MCU has really held the franchise back a lot, I think. I don't have a full plot. Plain. Bottom line, I don't have a full plot outline or anything for what Spider-Man Homeopathic Remedy should be, but I know what elements it should include. The villain is going to be Hobgoblin. Again, with the Hobgoblin, yes, because the part that made Spider-Man Far From Home so great was the part at the end where they revisit the classic Spider-Man and Spider-Man movies' roots. They lean back into the stuff that they leaned away from after the Andrew Garfield stuff, with the Daily Bugle and J. Jonah Jameson as portrayed by J.K. Simmons, and Spider-Man actually whipping around through very tall buildings. Felt like a Spider-Man picture again, and it felt wonderful. It felt so wonderful. So yeah, go ahead, have Hobgoblin in there. Now, before Tom Holland was cast as Peter Parker, the studios had a couple of different finalists of who would play the part. One of them was Asa Butterfield, who declined the nomination, stating that he was afraid he'd leak Marvel's secrets inadvertently. In other words, he was afraid that he'd pull a Tom Holland. But in the end, Tom Holland's casting decision turned out to be perfect with his background in acrobatics. Asa Butterfield, I think, would be similarly perfect as the role of Harry Osborn in Spider-Man Homeopathic Remedy? Never made that clear. Hobgoblin spends a lot of time on the Goblin Glider. Asa Butterfield trained for that. He spent like half of Ender's Game doing wire effects. Especially in Mark Webb's films, the idea that Peter Parker is friends with Harry Osborn somehow never really gelled with me. It just always seemed off. What's Peter Parker doing hanging around with the son of a billionaire CEO? The MCU, Spider-Man casually hangs around with Tony Stark. Instead of having Uncle Ben as his hero, working class man as his idol, and albatross around his neck. Now he has Tony Stark's, billionaire Tony Stark's. So, Spider-Man, hanging out with Harry Osborn now, because now he prefers the company of billionaires. When it turns out that Harry Osborn is the Hobgoblin, that's what shakes Peter Parker out of his hero worship, learns to re-idolize his Uncle Ben, and becomes a proletariat revolutionary, a hero for the underclass. I can't think off the top of my head any Russian revolutionary quotes about how there must with great power come great responsibility, but the idea of Spider-Man and superheroes in general does bring to mind the superhero, the Nietzschean ideal of the Übermensch. Now the way Nietzsche used that term, it meant different things based on different contexts. No one clear definition, multiple Übermenschen. That's actually going to come important later. Now here's the time for him to realize the flaws of the capitalist system that gave Tony Stark the wealth in the first place. Of course, it's all fictional, you know. There's plausible deniability everywhere, you know. It's only because Tony Stark has so much personal wealth that he's able to become Iron Man. Thus, Tony Stark's wealth is justified. Regardless of how many people he had to exploit to accrue that wealth, it's justified. In fiction land, there's extenuating circumstances and plausible deniability for everything. Fiction is as problematic or as unproblematic as it wants to be, but there's still references to real points in reality. I mean, the future of the MCU does intend to lean toward wokeness even more. For example, the Thor sequel fully intends to explore Valkyrie's bisexuality. Oh my gosh. Love triangle between Jane Foster, Thor, and Valkyrie. Maybe? I don't know. Taika, help me out. Jojo Rabbit. Now, I'm not going to call Disney fascist, but here's some recent news items that have made me say, uh-oh, Disney. Sean Spicer, a fascist, is going to be on the next season of Dancing with the Stars on ABC. Disney executives thought that the anti-fascist comedy Jojo Rabbit was a little hardcore for their... You should actually read that article. I've only read the headline. Oh, here's one. Art Spiegelman, an anti-fascist, was invited to write an introduction to an anthology of Marvel comics. The introduction was very critical of Ike Perlmutter and Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying that Marvel CEO Ike Perlmutter is a fascist or a white supremacist, but I am saying that he's demonstrably racist, and he's very definitely corporate buddies with the president, who is those things. And Marvel refused to print the introduction as written, so he decided not to run it at all if he was going to be censored like that. You know, that happens. Marvel. Disney have been acting pretty fashy lately, so now's the chance for Spider-Man to get actually woke, really anti-fascist, instead of just flirting with wokeness. The Tony Stark business has been what's been keeping MCU Peter Parker from being woke, and he has every opportunity to be woke in the MCU, but he doesn't take it. Up to this point, the John Watts films have had flirtations with wokeness. Spider-Man has gay and transgendered classmates, for example. It's all in the background, though. MJ is kind of woke, socially conscious, let's put it that way. He hasn't had a crush on a single white person so far. That somehow proves you're not racist if you only have crushes on women of color. MCU has been leaning toward wokeness with more representation, more outsider voices, that kind of thing, but they're still, in the end, a corporate product. And here's the chance for the billion-dollar Sony Corporation to go full-on anti-corporate. Sony may be a larger company than Disney, technically, because Sony also manufactures electronics alongside entertainment. But they don't have a market share in anything the way that Disney has in the entertainment sector. 40% market share in theaters? No, I think. Disney controls a vast amount of the market share. Thus, any anti-corporate sentiment on Sony's part could deniably, plausibly be seen as anti-Disney corporate. And say, oh, not all corporations, not you, Sony, just Disney. Look at how much market share they have. They're a monopoly. Is it beautiful? There's this thing in culture where minority voices are seen as somehow not as legitimate as traditional WASP voices, the voices that we've already had in culture, and then thus any platforming of those voices must be forced. Marvel is, they're actively, at least somewhat trying not to be evil. With their power, they are exerting some influence toward smaller voices. But even if the producers try to seek out smaller voices, there's no way that they're going to be able to find all the small voices that are worth being heard. It's just like that. Right? And so all this power concentrated in an ubermensch like Spider-Man, there's no way for Spider-Man to be able to be wherever he's needed. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. The power is concentrated in Spider-Man as one hero. But now here's his chance to spread his power out somehow. Introduce Silk, introduce Miles Morales as Spider-Man. We've already established the existence of Miles Morales in the MCU. Bring Gwen Stacy back into the mix again, just so that she can also become a Spider-Woman. So here's where Spider-Man creates a multitude of spider people. Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Spider non-binary pals. Yes, Spider Children. No, not Spider Children. Because he realizes what was wrong with Tony Stark doing that this time around. Well, that's my fanfic, at least. It's, I'm not saying it's what should happen, but that's totally what John Watts should do. It's just an idea, and ideas are non-copyrightable, so feel free to use it, Mr. Watts. If you see this video is gonna get like at least one view. I'm certain of it. Man, this video is gonna blow up. Here's the part where I wrap things up in a neat little web whip. And then I'm gonna have like some CG webbing come and hit the camera and turn it up. I don't know how to end this. And remember the D20. Expo when Marvel announced a whole bunch of stuff and they were on top of the world. That was pretty sick, wasn't it?